Welcome to Creative Courage Chats, a search for a new understanding of creativity and problem solving. I'm Alex Raffi. Hi everybody. We're back to another Creative Courage Chats here, and I have two people I'm very familiar with, Julie and Cynthia. They work at my office. They're my favorite graphic artists in the world, and they happen to work for me. It's totally convenient. So, you guys, Julie, introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Julie. I'm in Florida. I do graphic design for Alex at Imagine, and I also do photography, and I'm a mom.
And yeah, she has a fantastic, can I mention the Instagram?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, she has a fantastic Instagram she does, which is just basically a memorial for her family and everything. And it's got some really beautiful pictures in there, and I really enjoy that Instagram page of yours. And then we got, sorry?
It's kind of like a journal to my daughter.
Yeah. And Cynthia.
I am Cynthia. I'm also a designer, art director, fine artist, webmaster, trick of all trades.
So I'm happy. It's just kind of fun because, we usually talk about work and we're always doing work together, but we get to talk about some art and creativity and stuff like that. And I think it's cool because you guys are kind of my muse in a lot of ways in terms of my whole creative courage thing, because, my whole thing about creativity being amazing, about art and fun, trying to come up with a creativity side, but also seeing it as a problem solving. You guys are constantly solving problems. Cynthia, you're like legendary at the office you only asked me for help 3 times, and the 3 times you asked me, you figured out the answer before I got back to you with an answer. So you
I actually did that to Julie today.
Oh, did you do that?
You download this thing. Oh, I have it.
It's okay. I kind of feel like you're like, I'm going to throw him a bone today. And here, can you help me with this little thing? And then you're like,
no,
in your head, you figured out the answer. And it's like,
I think, Alex, it's actually part of the process. Is you even if the other person doesn't speak to you at all, you're getting outside of your own brain. Just talking to another person about it is enough to get your brain to click in a different way sometimes.
Well, that's
problem, so you can kind of see what the problem is from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, actually. I think that makes sense. That when you pull yourself out of a situation, that your brain is now shifts a little bit, and it's not cluttered by all the other stuff. And you find a nice, clearer path to find some answers. So, wow, we've already started. Today I was thinking about, because, one of the things that I think that is great about the team at the office is that everybody is able to work together so well. And everybody in the office, in my opinion, has a very healthy ego. Everybody feels like they're qualified and they're really good at what they do, but they don't let it get in the way of the process, which I think is really not an easy thing to create. And I didn't create this. I mean, it's like I'm the owner and Brian are the owners, and everybody's like, wow, how did you create? It just happens, right? It happened, I think. And you guys
you allowed it to happen.
Sure.
You're definitely a part of it.
Right. Well, yeah. So but it creates an environment when you let people do their thing and have trust in them and allow them to do their work the way they want to do it. Good things happen if you.
Yeah, it becomes organic. It's not structured. It flows the way it is meant to flow.
So I don't know. Maybe talk about that process. I mean, you guys, when you approach, let's just talk about, like, let's say a new client needs, or let's use as an example a client that we're currently in the middle of working on is Blind Connect. So let's just throw that into the mix here. And can you talk about that process of how we approach that?
Yeah, I mean, that one was, every client has their own special way that we have to get through, but this one was an extra special. we're trying to create a brand for a client that is highly non-sighted. Like a lot of their people.
Yeah, they're for blind people. She's being very politically correct on this thing because we're having to work on the language with this. But basically, it's a group that helps blind people. and a lot in service in newly blind people. So like somebody, let's say they get diabetes and they lose their sight and they're 45 years old and they've been sighted their whole lives, and all of a sudden the whole world changes for them. They can't see. And so this organization, it's a nonprofit that's out there, actually shows them how to, read Braille and how to walk with a cane and how to live in a world where you can't see. And of course, it's not, they don't work with people that are partially blind and people that are totally blind. They can work with all different kinds of people. And so we were asked to create a brand for an organization that there's blind people don't see
what we designed for them, but at the same time, they're using this branding for fundraising efforts.
Right.
So there are the people that are definitely going to be seeing the brand also. So, and it was really interesting. I mean, anytime we're developing a brand for someone, it's kind of just diving in and trying to really get to know who they are and
who you're speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the public you're speaking to, and the approach, the thing that was interesting, I thought also was that you came up, because what normally happens is you guys come up with samples, and then but those aren't really those are almost like just the beginning, because people don't know what they want or what they like and don't know how to say it, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of throw out samples. But this is the thing that I think is interesting for all artists, and I want to ask you guys how you cope with this, because I know it's happened a lot, is you put a lot of energy into the designs. Like you really think about it. And I know that each one has its own reason and its own purpose and its own energy and everything. And then you present it, and then the client says, I hate that. I hate that. I don't like that. So all this energy went into doing these things, and you hear, I hate that, and it gets thrown away. And now you have to go back to the table and put that same amount of energy into something new, even if you don't agree and disagree. So how do you manage that? Because that's super hard for a lot of people, is to put everything you've got in.
To not take it as, I hate that, but that this isn't what I was looking for. So now it's become this new obstacle. You have to try to look at what you were looking at before and come at it from a different direction. So it's a challenge that I think both of us feel like we can accomplish, but to take it as, I hate that, and feel bad about what you created wouldn't help you get to the solution that you need to get to. So you have to look at it as we're missing something, or maybe we walked down the wrong path and we need to,
But another thing is, why do you hate that? Like, right. What do you hate about it?
What's missing?
What's missing? What can we do differently? And I mean, with this project in particular, we are this close to finalizing,
right?
And I'm pretty sure we're there, which is exciting. But halfway through the process, we had to take a step back, and we had to educate the client on what the logo was being used for, how we had thought through how it was going to be used and what the colors were, and just every step of everything that went into that logo was explained to them. And it really helped them come to an understanding of, oh, well, this is great. Can I get this small change to it? So it's just getting over that hump is all it takes sometimes.
And we've actually seen that happen in person when somebody doesn't like a logo, but then you go through the process of explaining it, and then they change their mind. It's like, they kind of say, oh, okay, I didn't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting sometimes too, is trying to, that's not easy to do either. Sometimes, sometimes people, and you're always, and then go ahead.
At the end of the day, what we're making, like, we can't take it personally because it's not
right.
I have my painting, Julie has her photography. Those are our personal things. Mm-hmm. The things we're making for clients are for them. So if they don't like it, that's not me they don't like. It's
yeah. No, I know what you're saying is important though, because I think that people do take it like personally. Like a lot of people take it personally. They'll design something and they'll be positive. This is the best logo that you will ever have. This is
and I can't say I've never been crushed.
Oh, sure.
There's some that I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is perfect. Okay, we're starting over.
Yeah, and I've been on the other end of crushing you at times with some things as well. So but the thing is, this is why you guys are pros, is because usually when we crush something, it's because the clients and there's other things that aren't relevant to the artwork get in the way. Sometimes a client doesn't like red or something, something crazy like that, and so we shut it down. And I've had situations where I know that you knew that what I'm saying is wrong. Like, no, this is actually the best thing. And I'm telling you, well, yeah, I know it's the best. It doesn't matter. Screw it. We're going to have to do something else that's not as good. And I know that you get agitated and then you express your agitation, but then you actually go back into it and put everything you got into the new, less cool version.
Yeah, it can be a really hard push and pull because you
Right.
have to have the passion about that one. You have to.
Right.
Yeah,
In order to make it
equality. So you need to be passionate about it, but you also have to be able to disconnect too.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you have to learn. It's a learned behavior.
and the honest truth is, there's a lot more commercial artists in the world than there are fine artists, right? So fine artists have freedom; they can go ahead and do, and it's about their expression and their personal view on things, and they'll go ahead and like you have your series, the Skull series with the beautiful foliage and behind you. It's right behind you, right there is one of them. And then Julie, you have all of your photography and the stuff that you do, on your end too, but you don't have any behind you. But next time we talk, you can have some of your photography behind you. but when you're doing, you're right. When you're doing commercial art, it's a whole different animal. But you're still using the same tools. You're still using the same parts of your brain, and there's no less value there, to it. There's just no less value to the thing. And I'm just going to say this because we are talking about commercial art. And I know I've said this a million times to you guys, but Michelangelo, it was a fine artist, right? He was considered one of the greatest artists in history, and he was a commissioned artist. He was a commercial artist for the church. The church hired him to paint murals and paintings that express stories in the Bible, because there were a large portion of churchgoers who couldn't read the Bible. They weren't educated enough they didn't know how to read. So they were able to express those stories. So basically, a lot of these paintings you see in these churches were billboards, were used as ways of advertising the stories within the Bible. So he was being hired by the church to do things. And then he argues, and I know I bring this up in Creative Courage, but he disagreed with some of the teachings of the church, and he argued with them about what would be the right way to go. He's arguing with the Pope about religion. Kind of crazy. But anyway, I think that's an interesting to consider, is that there isn't that far, it isn't that different. I mean, you're using the same tools to do just different things. People are just hiring you for your skill to be able to do it. So like, what are like some of the hardest things that you guys, like, okay, I instead of telling you, hey, what do you love most? I'm gonna say, what do you hate most? about doing this stuff, this graphics and stuff, and working with, because the honest truth is, sometimes we're working with people who aren't willing to go the full extent and see the thing all the way through. Sometimes they're just deciding after thinking of something this far, and it makes it a little difficult. And I know you have to pitch a lot on some of these ideas. But what's the thing that's probably the most frustrating, you think?
I think it can be challenging when you feel like the work that you're creating has been made to be effective, and then that element becomes chipped away, revision after revision after revision, so the piece becomes less effective in your mind for the purpose that it might have been made for. That can be frustrating. So you may end up with that final version, but you feel like it's not as functional or as effective as it could have been. So I think that's hard, but you disconnect. You hope that maybe the next piece can evolve in a better way. Sometimes that evolution works. So like you do a lot of communication with both the client and the internal team, and a piece that started out a certain way ends up evolving and becoming something better, and that's the goal. That's what you want to happen, but that doesn't always happen. So I think that can be pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're always trying to make the best possible end result.
Right.
So yeah, Yeah, I agree. It's it's hard when you want more for them than they
Or if you
want.
feel like maybe the target market, the audience isn't being spoken in the best way too. So the client might be seeing it and they're evaluating it themselves and giving judgment on different aspects, but they're not taking into consideration who they're going to be using that piece for. So yeah, I think that can become frustrating.
So Julie, your superpower, in my view, is you're always able to see a path somewhere. You're never discouraged. You're always, because I wrote a book called Creative Courage, and I've had so many moments where I'm just totally doubting things and doubting, where I'm going or what I'm doing with the work I'm working on. And then and when I'm really feeling like really crappy about it, I talk to you about it, and and you figure out a way to kind of show me, there's this cracked open door you didn't try over here. Maybe you should go look in that door and see what you can find. Or, it always seems like that kind of thing where you have this internal optimism I think it's just part of who you are. I don't think it has anything to do with your, well, it's part of your method because it's who you are, sure. But I don't even think it's intentional. I mean, that's how you live your life, right? I mean, you pretty much are always kind of doing that.
I'm not sure. I suppose.
I mean, am I wrong, Cynthia? Isn't it?
No, I always say, like, I tell Matt, I don't know how many times I've told him, but I want Julie to be my mom. Like, Julie's house is like a fairyland. Like,
right. No, she's, but that's actually a very powerful strength in creativity. I think it's because, the thing about creatives, this is the thing, that the flaw of creatives is, to be really creative, you need to feel a lot of things. You need to force yourself to feel things. Sometimes things that aren't pleasant. Sometimes there's, creatives tend to be drawn towards things that that move you in some way. And sometimes that puts you in situations where you're forced to feel a lot of empathy for people and for things that are going on in the world. And then there gets a point sometimes, the deeper you go, the harder it is to manage it. And that's why you see a lot of people that tend to be artists that kind of struggle with this, because they're always kind of going, you see it with, I just saw a documentary on Kurt Cobain. What is he, 26 years old when he did that? And he was an incredible creative, and it creates these areas, right? But in the end, we're able to try to manage them in some way, shape, or form. I mean, you guys feeling me here? Am I? And like Julie, I know you do. You've done a lot of things in your life, and Cynthia, you've done a lot of things in your life to give back to the community, and do you do. Because that we really like that. I love that. I love that we have a team of people that have, Tiffany, all the stuff that she's done in the office, and it's like I have a bunch of philanthropists that are working at the office. It's pretty cool. But I think that's also a way of feeling like you're doing something, right? I don't know where I'm going with that. What do you think?
Yeah,
I agree. Oh, sorry.
No,
go ahead.
I was just thinking about you, Cynthia. I mean, and you were just involved in a project recently that was helping the community in Vegas, and you did it.
Black Lives Matter thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I was able to be involved in that, which was great.
I know, for me, it just seems like whenever I talk, because I talk to a lot of people, and especially with this thing I'm doing, and I think that finding these ways of giving back sometimes is a good way. See, the whole point for me is when I'm hoping that young creatives or people that want to be creative watch these videos and start seeing creative people and see that it's not just about, hey, let's talk about these little things we make, or this artwork. You see that it's just part of who they are and how they live their lives, so that they can start seeing that, oh, that thing I get, that feeling I get from creating this artwork, I can actually get it from doing something else, and it's still okay. I can do both, and I can, and then I want to see more of that. I'm not saying that it's not out there, but I am saying that there's a lot of people out there that don't know this and don't realize this, or don't know that they have the time to do this. That was something that came up in my last talk, is that the police officer, he's also a poet. He said that some people just don't feel like they have time to create anything.
That's another thing that I've kind of been struggling with, is like you see the people who are creating daily, they're doing their own thing every day, and like I would love to do that, but you don't have to put that kind of pressure on yourself. It's
Yeah.
like if you paint when you have the time. I mean, I'm busy, I got little people, I've got work, I've got, you know, just you get tired.
It's not actual little people.
Oh, he's so small. He's
Yes,
a little guy. I have a child.
yes, I just
I have two childs, and
Two
one
child.
is very tiny and needy.
This is
but
the one thing.
but it's finding the balance.
Yeah.
It's finding the time to create, but not turning it into something that's gonna eat you up if you don't. Like it's supposed to be something that
Yeah.
good for you. It's an
That's a
outlet.
healthy way of looking at it.
Fun. It's not supposed to be a chore to sit down and let me find 10 minutes today to do this. It would be great if I could do that, but it's not realistic. And just being okay with that, with working at the pace that you currently can. I think that's something that I've been working on lately.
I do. When we were actually working in the office together, I did enjoy coming to the office every once in a while, and then like you'd be outside with a mask on, and you'd be like saying something, or something that I'm pretty sure that's not for a client, but it's for the office.
Yeah.
And then it turned into something really cool that we'd have in the office, and it was custom made. And then, you know, this is the thing that's interesting is some bosses or whatever would think, wait a minute, this should be working on. But then that thing you made became an anecdote that allowed us to qualify the level of creativity and talent of the art department. You know what I mean? It's like, well, they built that. Well, you know, Cynthia built that. The person working on your logo built this thing that you just said you think is pretty cool.
She is creative.
Yeah, she's actually doing something. And it actually turned into a great way of, you know, being able to tell the story in the office, which is pretty cool. I think that's just something. I actually, you know, you have a healthy way of looking at finding time. I'm of the belief that you try to seek things out that you love and let it kill you.
I do sometimes. Sometimes I get so sucked into a project that it's definitely not healthy. But
I sometimes it's just desperation. It's like I haven't hit my quota of making myself feel like I accomplished something, you know. And sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle for me personally, but I've been reading more now since we've had in quarantine, and all I'm doing is going, man, I need to do more. You know, when you start reading about things you're curious about, you just you want to create more things. You know, I don't know if that's how you guys are, but
it's important to remember that there's a lot of moments that can feed that need to do. It doesn't have to be like specifically painting, you know, like what's on your wall, or, you know, finishing another podcast, or whatever's on that list that you want to feed. It can be in your day-to-day actions, you know, your neighbor across the street, the way that you're arranging your garden, Cynthia, in your front yard.
yeah.
Those different activities can be feeding that need. And you have to realize that those play a role in what will be painted next on your wall. You know, each of those moments play a role, right?
I think one of the things I love about your photography and is just that it's so relatable. You know, because as a parent, you're seeing your daughter grow up, and you see the things that she's doing. She's just so photogenic, you know, and she's got those curls and everything. And it reminds me of Ellie so much when I see those and all those moments, you know. And it reminds me, and I feel this nostalgia. But I think that's why it's pleasant. It's because I lived those days, and now I get to see someone else going through those little joyous moments, and you get to almost go back in time. It's almost like a time machine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing them is kind of like a time machine and everything. And yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm getting emotional.
Don't we love that about photography though? Because you get to freeze things, you get to pause on those moments and remember those tiny little toes that are not so tiny anymore.
Yeah.
You know? Just like stop it, pause that moment. And
this is the first time I got emotional doing this thing. but just the thought of that stuff, it really gets me, you know. And you guys are just, both of you are just fantastic parents, and I love the imagined babies. I love the imagined kids. They're so
I
cool.
can't believe yours is going to be a senior.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Holy crap.
I don't even know what we're gonna do about that, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah, seriously. But anyway, yeah. So I think that the creativity is such a, how I hit you guys over the head with this, and you've been bored to tears with me talking about this topic forever, more than anybody on the planet. You guys have lived through this, my nonsense about this stuff. But it is something that I think is super important. What do you guys, if you were to give advice to young artists, young people in general, maybe, not just artists, or maybe young people that should be artists, I don't know. What would you say? What's kind of advice that you'd give to some that you've learned? Because Cynthia, you were a young artist when I first met you. I mean, you're still young, but yeah. But I remember your portfolio very vividly, and I remember that. So I'm just going to share that anecdote because I can't help it. So we were looking for a new graphic designer, and I had a bunch of people lined up to see, and Cynthia was the first interview, and I went through her portfolio, and everything was good. It's good. It's good. And then there was this one with typography, and it caused me to pause, and I thought, I can't do that, because I had a pretty big ego, and I was like, wow, that's really good. I can't do that. That's really fantastic. And then I made kind of a comment to you, and then you made a very snide kind of mocking comment back at me or something. And then I was surprised that you, during an interview, you would do that, with the guy that you, and then I was like more impressed. And then we went through the more discussions. That opened up the whole door to another discussion. And then I remember after the interview, I went to Brian. I said, I think I'm done. I think I found her. And that's how it happened. It was like, I didn't even interview anybody else. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But it seems to have worked out pretty well. I went with my gut completely with that. You've been with us a couple of years now.
Almost 10.
Yeah. So I think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. In terms of, I guess I asked you a question and I talked. But what do you guys think is some advice that you would give a young person?
I think it's just to do. I mean, you do need to create. You need to do what it is. Like, I wanted to get in.
Just do something.
Do it. Yankee said it best.
Stop sitting on your ass and wondering, and actually get to work. Shut up and work, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's actually very good advice. I mean, I think, as far as the frustration with that, I think, because, you've interviewed young artists, right? A lot of them. And what's like the mistake they make, do you think, when they come in for an interview, do you think?
I think so one thing that you had said to me from the beginning of time was, don't let it go to your head. That's really good, but don't let it go to your head.
Don't let it go to your head. Don't
be too full of yourself. I think one thing that I've seen in some people that I've interviewed that's really kind of been a turnoff is that they didn't have it go to their head. That they didn't have the confidence in their work.
Right.
That, I mean, if you're not confident in your work, why should I be confident in your work?
Right. Yeah. So
it's coming in.
So you want them to have confidence, but not cocky.
Right.
They need to have confidence.
Yeah, it can be a hard balance.
Or maybe finding a place, maybe to work, or people to surround yourself with that allow you to become confident in yourself. So I think that when I entered Imagine, I was lacking some of that confidence, but this door was opened real wide for me. I was able to experiment with my confidence. I was able to speak up at meetings, and I was able to work for actual clients on projects.
But Julie, there were some things you weren't confident about, but your portfolio that you brought in was, it was heavily photography because that's what you've done a lot of, and you were confident in that.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
did come
Okay.
in, yeah.
So I did do in certain
Yes.
areas, but I also allowed myself to, or you guys allowed me to become confident in other areas. You know, surrounding yourself by, whether it's your social life or your, you know, employers, people that see that you're good at something and they help you build that confidence is key in becoming something great.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, you know,
or-
yeah, that's a really good point, and I think that's, you know, that kind of cuts a little deep with me because I think when I was younger, I was a pretty creative kid because it was a distraction. I was shy, and then I would just sit by myself and I would just draw or do whatever or build something. And my parents were just totally open to anything I needed. If I was curious about something, like any kind of painting or sculpting, they would get me clay. They just, I don't know if it was to keep me busy or if it was just, they were just always encouraging me. No, that's great. Oh, that's good. Yeah, do that. Keep doing that. So I had that. I guess that the thing that really kills me, and kind of one of the reasons I even do this whole project, is the kids that don't have that. You know, for me, the kids that don't have the positive reinforcement or the encouragement or being told that they have, you know, a value in some way. You know, because like I said, I was super skinny and it was awkward and, you know, and I was shy, but I was always the best artist in the room in when I was in school. And that was like my superpower. That's what got me out of things. That's where people would show me respect based on that. Like, and it was I figured it out eventually. I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. So it helped me pursue it to kind of find my spot. I had to find my place. And then it got to a level where it was like I didn't need that anymore. I didn't need to have a thing to hang my my ego on. And it was just like I just kind of accepted it completely and said, okay, I'm okay. I'm not weird. I'm not. It's just I am who I, and I'm just going to go, and let's just go ahead and if people like me, fantastic. If they don't like me, then whatever. Where are we going to go with? There's nowhere to go with that. But I think that's kind of the thing. I think that's interesting. That I think that is creating an environment, like you said, you had an open door, you know, to kind of open. We need more of that. We need it in schools. We need it in just in general, in the way people talk to each other. I don't want to get too heavy and too, but I mean, especially now, it's like everybody's living in these little tiny boxes, you know,
Right.
and they're not thinking farther than the walls of the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I think that we need to, you know, share our boxes or something. I don't know. Here, you live in my box for a little while. I live in your box. So we'll figure out. Oh, it smells funny in here. I don't want to be in this box. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
You don't need to be in a box.
Yeah, take away the boxes.
Take away the box.
This is funny. This is really cool because, like, you know, I don't know. Next to my family, you guys know me better than anybody, and I think that's that. So I really appreciate you guys because I know you think I'm ridiculous most of the time. So I appreciate you guys doing this, taking the time to do this, and everything. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about, Cynthia? Talk about where people can see your work.
Well, right now it's all digital. I have a site up. I don't even know what it is. Oh my goodness.
Okay, let me go to Julie.
Yeah, go ahead and
Julie,
cut that part.
tell people where they can see your work or your photographs and stuff like that.
Well, I have a couple Instagram accounts. So now _designing or now _photographing. Both of those. So I'm showcasing some of the photography that I'm doing and some of the design work that I've been doing for Imagine and on the side too.
Perfect.
Check it out on there. Or Imagine's website. I've been involved in some of the projects.
That's a good place. Go to the Imagine website.
Imagine's website's basically Julie and I's portfolio.
Yeah, there you go. That's as it should be. That's good. But Cynthia, you have a page, right? Or is it active?
I do, yeah. Cinfineart.com.
Sin, but not with a C, not with.
Yeah, CYN.
Well, I'll have it down on the thing so people know.
And then also cc.paints. on Instagram. Yeah, I definitely haven't been posting too much of it recently. I've been going, like Julie said, I've been spending more time in the art and stuff.
But, yeah,
But
yes, that which is also important because actually I took out all of my stuff because I just got lazy after a while. I didn't want to do it. But cool. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate you making the time and everything. I hope this was fun and not just like you were hanging out with Dad.
you're cool, Dad.
Talk to the old guy.
Yeah. This is fun. This is nice. I love this because you're talking to a lot of different people, and it's been neat to kind of follow along, now be a little bit a part of it. So
yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Alex.
Anyway, we're digressing.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.